goes the tractor that our customers say is the best tractor ever marketed in North America. The competition's not standing still. Ford's come out with a whole new line of tractors. Today, Mark and I are going to take a little time to go over that tractor with you, kind of go through the features and benefits of that tractor and compare it to Maxxum. Mark, let's take a look at those tractors. Okay.
There's 6 new models of these new 40 series tractors, 4 of which line up with the Maxxum tractor. 6640, 7740, 7840, and the 8240, which is the tractor we have here today.
Okay, the 8240, since we're going to look at this one, which model of the Maxxum tractor does it compare to?
This is a 96 horsepower tractor and lines up closely with our 5140.
Okay, so that's the comparison we'll make throughout the day as we look at this tractor, at least in terms of how it compares to Maxxum.
Yes.
What are the major features, Mark, or the major changes that Ford's incorporated on these tractors?
The first thing you notice, the most obvious, is the styling changes. They've rounded the corners off a little bit and made it a nicer looking tractor.
It does look better. It looks like a new cab, and I do see some new hood lines. Looks like they've dropped the front of the hood to improve visibility. I don't think they've got quite the visibility over the top that we've got with a Maxxum, but it does look better. I notice we've got the European headlights, the European marker lights, and we do have a roof hatch. So I guess we can conclude that this is a worldwide model, and there's some cost incorporated here to meet European standards that's really not necessary in North American tractors. What are the features then past styling that they've got, the new things that we want to talk about?
Okay, one of the important changes they've made is in the engine area. They've made a lot of changes to that engine, and we'll go through that in just a little bit. One of the other changes is they've added some optional lift cylinders, external lift cylinders on the hitch to give it greater hitch capacity as an option. They've also made some changes to the transmission. They have a new transmission that's a 4-speed power shift transmission.
Okay, that's the pulse command transmission, the same as they use on the big Ford tractors?
They do use the term pulse command on this transmission, but it is not the same transmission. It's an entirely different transmission, and when we go through how that transmission operates, you'll see that it's a different transmission.
Okay, and there's something about a new packaging concept in terms of marketing. What's that all about, Mark?
Right, the packaging concept, something that's been used in the automotive industry for years, but it's something new to us in the ag industry. This package here that's on this tractor is called the SLE package. There will be 3 different packages, the SLE, the SL, and the S package. This package here is the most deluxe package. It has the power shift transmission in that package, and it'll have other standard features in that package that aren't offered on the other tractors, a lot of them Maxxum-like features. Okay? As you go down to the SL package, you'll get the synchronized transmission, and you lose some of those standard features. Then you go down to the next package below that is the S package, which is their economy package. Basically, it's only offered as a non-cab tractor. It's a straddle type mount. It resembles very much their old 10 series tractors.
Okay, now that wouldn't really compete with Maxxum though, would it? It'd be more like 95 series competitor?
That's right. And the S package also is only offered in their lower horsepower models. It doesn't go up through the entire line.
Okay. Well, the major feature we want to talk about, I think, to start with is probably the engine. So why don't we take a walk around there and look at the engine. You can tell me about the new features and what's really different.
Okay.
Let's get started.
Hey, there's the sun.
It's going to be a bright day. Okay, we've got side panels on here, Mark. Is this standard equipment or optional?
It's standard on this SLE package, but it does become an option in some of the other packages.
Okay, if we look at the bottom though, there looks like a lot of clearance underneath there. Is that a functional side panel?
No, the side panel is strictly cosmetic, has no functional purpose.
Okay, and I also noticed that we don't see on this tractor that super strong frame rail structure we've got on a Maxxum. So how do they handle all the heavy loads, Mark?
Okay, Ford has recognized that in a tractor this size we need to have more strength for the front end, and they've addressed that by increasing the strength of this block. They've added some webbing inside the casting of this block.
But doesn't that mean a heavier block has less thermal rejection and it tends to overheat and maybe not have the efficiency like we have in a Maxxum tractor?
The block does become less efficient in rejecting heat as you make the block thicker. And in fact, one of the webs that they've had to place in the block is right in the coolant jacket. And what do you think that does to the heat rejection in that
Okay,
area?
probably slows it down. Yeah, probably slows it down. Okay, why don't we, can we open up some other panels? Looks like we've got some other knobs here.
Yeah, as their 10 series did, this panel hinges up.
Okay.
Isn't really any different other than they've put some new latches on it.
Well, that's pretty nice. Does it swing up on the other side also?
No, just this one side.
Okay. And what are we looking at that is also different and new on this engine here?
They've tried to make the engine a little easier to service by putting vertical spin-on filters. They've used the poly V-belt like we have in Maxxum,
Okay.
an automatic belt tensioner.
Okay, we know that's a good feature because if they get the life that a Maxxum gets in terms of belt, it's 2 to 3 times what a conventional belt system is. And I thought I noticed that there's a viscous drive fan also.
Yes, most of the models will have the viscous drive fan. It does. Some of the smaller ones and some of the lesser packages don't have that as a standard feature, but that's a good feature to have. It can save fuel in some situations.
Right, reduces horsepower when you don't need the cooling, and that means more for the final drive. Okay, what else have we got that's new on the engine, Mark?
Okay, we've talked a little bit about some external changes that you can see, but there's still a lot of changes that took place inside the engine. Again, a lot of these changes are things that are Maxxum-like features. Things like the trapezoid design of the piston and rod to add durability to the engine.
Okay.
Also piston oil cooling to control that piston head temperature.
Another nice Maxxum feature. Mark, one thing I'm kind of getting from you, that these are changes on an older engine series, and my understanding at first was that this might be a new engine. It's really not a new engine, is it? It's just kind of an engine that's been improved.
Right, they use the term Genesis. They call this the new Genesis series engine. It's new to them because it has gone through a lot of major changes, but yet it's still the old block. It's still the same basic design that goes back to the 60s, really. They've increased the displacement on these engines so that they can increase the horsepowers of each model. They've done that by keeping the same bore, but they've gone to a longer stroke.
Okay, longer stroke means a little more wear to piston travel, but probably not to create a problem. What else have they got in terms of features? I see a big black bottle up at the top right above the radiator. What is that, Mark?
Right, this is the coolant bottle. You know, on a Maxxum we have a coolant bottle to check your coolant level, and that's what this is, an overflow tank.
Okay, but on a Maxxum tractor, that's a translucent bottle, and you can actually see the level. That bottle you can't. It looks like you've got to climb right up to check in there and see if the level is low or high. Is that right?
That's right. I have to climb up on the axle to get in to open this cap and actually look inside to see what my coolant level is inside there. Same thing is true with fuel tank. The fuel tank is still in front on this tractor, so you have to climb up in the axle to put fuel in it as well.
Okay. Can you tell me too, there's something I don't recognize, that little green bottle up right behind the air cleaner.
Oh, this bottle right here.
Yeah.
That's the fluid for their brake system and for the hydraulic clutch in the models that use that particular clutch. It gives them a common reservoir for both those systems, but it does mean that they do have hydraulic brakes now, which is something Ford did not have in the past. Ford has traditionally, for many, many years, used the mechanical brakes. They've gone to wet brakes in the past, but they were still mechanical. They're still somewhat mechanical in the fact that the brake actuator itself is still the old mechanical actuator, but they put in a small slave cylinder in there to operate that actuator plate. So the final application is still mechanical, which means there's still there's more pieces, there's more parts involved in the application of the brake.
Okay, an improvement, but not as good as we've got on a Maxxum. Is that about right? Okay. Air cleaner system. Well, I see they've got an underhood muffler now.
Right. Most of the models will have an underhood muffler. One feature that they do have with this is they have an aspirator tube which draws the debris and dirt off the air filter, loose particles, and shoots them out the exhaust system.
Okay, pretty nice. A few nice changes. Same basic engine, structural changes, some nice new additions. Okay, why don't we move on from the engine, take a look at the hitch area.
Okay.
Let's take a walk back there. Little switch on the side here, Mark. What is this?
That allows the operator to raise or lower the hitch while he's back at the back end of the tractor, for instance, hooking up an implement.
Okay, I'm familiar with that. Is there a switch on the other side too?
Yes, left and right hand switches.
Standard equipment on this tractor?
It's standard on this particular tractor, the 8240, but it becomes an option along with lower link hitch sensing on the other models.
Okay, standard on some, optional on others. Okay, whenever we get to the back of the tractor, the big question is hitch lift capacity. Has it changed on the new series of Ford tractors?
Okay, as I mentioned to you earlier, George, that one of the new features on the tractor is optional hitch assist cylinders.
Ah, okay.
Which affects your lift capacity. If you have a model without any cylinders, it'll be about 4,400 pounds lift capacity. Then as you add one cylinder, then you jump up to 6,200 pounds. And then as you see here, we've got two lift cylinders, external cylinders, that boost it up to 8,240.
Okay, that's pretty big, especially when we compare to Maxxum, which kind of set the stage for high lift capacity in mid-sized tractors. Mark, I frankly don't see the construction here that we've got on a Maxxum in terms of link strength and the arm strength. I notice we've got an adjuster on this side, but we don't have the adjuster on that side like we do on Maxxum. Have they really got the strength back here to carry that bigger load?
They've had to do some things, particularly on the models that do offer the dual assist cylinders, to be able to handle that weight. Remember, this tractor wasn't originally designed to carry and handle that kind of weight like Maxxum was. It was designed to handle 7,700 pounds. It wasn't an addition later.
Okay,
this is obviously an addition. That's why they've had to go to the external cylinder route. But they did have to make a change in increasing their rear axle capacity to handle that kind of weight, and they've gone to a larger diameter axle on the 6-cylinder models.
Okay, this is a flange axle. Now, do they also have a bar axle available?
No, Ford still does not have a bar axle. They've traditionally gone with a flange axle only and are forced to have to use power adjust wheels to adapt to other tread settings.
Get the tread setting that folks want. Not quite the versatility in models then that folks have got with a Maxxum. I see we've got flip up. Is this any different than their older tractor?
No, not really.
Okay, no step here like you do on a Maxxum. That's kind of nice. PTO, have they upgraded to dry compartment back here?
No, it's still like their previous PTO on the 10 series, where the PTO shaft is in a wet compartment, so you do lose a little bit of oil. It's a little messy when you change the shaft. Plus, it's still two separate shafts, rather than ours has a reversible shaft.
Gotcha.
So you take one shaft out and have to get another shaft to put in its place.
Okay, again, not as convenient, not quite as nice. Hydraulics, any changes there?
The big change is adopting a PFC hydraulic system, like we have on Maxxum. That PFC hydraulic system will be used on the SLE packages only.
Oh, not standard on all the tractors?
No, the other tractors will use the open center system like Ford used on their previous 10 series.
Okay, some improvements here. I see some things a little better, a little different, but really not what I expected. What else back here, Mark? Anything?
No, the other thing I did want to point out, though, and this isn't anything new. Ford has done this for a long time. It's the way they mount their cab mounts. Their cab mount is actually mounted in sideways, which is very untraditional. And because of that, the way it's mounted, they're relying on just strictly the compression of the rubber mount itself to give the cushion, as opposed to allowing the rubber cushion to flex as it does when you mount it out flat.
I can see that. They don't have the big biscuit that we've got on a Maxxum cab to give you that real nice ride.
Right, so this cab will ride a little stiffer.
Okay, let's take a walk around and take a look at that cab.
Okay.
That's a nice big cab, Mark. Lots of visibility, just like a Maxxum has, and a two-door entrance, just like Maxxum has too. Hop on up there, show me what the controls are. Okay, visibility, how's it seem from up there, Mark?
Visibility is not too bad. They made a lot of improvements in visibility, but yet there's still some restrictions yet. One of the changes that they made is in the corner posts. They're a narrower corner post than what they once had. They've gotten rid of the rubber strip that used to seal the window glass. The glass is now glued in with the urethane glue, just like we do on Maxxum. The other thing they've done is the crossbar is now triangular shape, which gives you better visibility, but yet they still have a crossbar.
Okay, yeah, there is a crossbar. We don't have a crossbar, right, on a Maxxum?
Right, we have floor-to-ceiling visibility on Maxxum.
Okay, looking around the back, there's kind of a jungle gym attached to that rear window. Is that all just kind of grab bar?
Just grab bar to pull the window closed.
Okay, does that restrict your vision at all when you look back?
It does a little bit off the corners and a little bit straight back. Okay. It does get in the way sometimes.
But a lot of places to grab on.
Yep.
There's kind of a cover over there next to your arm.
Yes.
What's a toolbox?
It's a little utility box. You can put your sandwich or a couple tools in there.
Okay, pretty handy. In front of that looks like a thermos carrier or something like that, cup carrier, beverage holder.
Yep.
Instrumentation looks new to me. Looks like a new instrument panel, Mark, is that right?
That's right. This is their digital instrumentation panel, and this is not standard in all tractors, but is an option. Comes with the radar package, has digital readout of many of your functions.
Okay, looks to me like there's just one gauge panel over on that left side. What does that do? Is there a compromise there?
Yeah, there's a bar graph that monitors 3 different functions, being engine oil pressure, fuel, and engine temperature. So if you want to read, for instance, if I want to look at oil pressure, I press this pad here. Now I can look at my oil pressure or fuel level, or I can go up to engine temperature and read that gauge.
Okay.
I can never read all 3 of them all at the same time.
Okay. Going on around the cab, I see a lot of controls over on this panel. What are they all about?
Okay, we said this tractor had the lower link sensing hitch, was electronic sensing hitch, and these are the controls for that particular hitch.
Okay.
This hitch really operates very much like the Maxxum hitch does. I'll show you what these things are using our terminology so you recognize what they are, but this really is your mode selector, where you can select either position control, draft, or mix in between.
Okay.
Okay, this is your drop rate control, and it's done electronically.
Okay.
This is something we don't have. This is a height limiter.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you can limit the height to the hitch.
Okay, new control on the end there. What does that do?
Okay, this also has something to do with if the tractor is equipped with radar. You can dial in the percent of slip that you want, and it'll override the hitch system and begin to raise your implement out of the ground to maintain a particular wheel slip.
Okay, you must have to use that in conjunction with radar then. I mean, it can't be functional without the radar and the expensive instrumentation.
Right, it requires the radar. Then your setting lever is this lever here.
Okay.
Okay, right down here by your side.
Okay, and this button down over here?
This is like what we've called hitch command, a feature
okay.
that's been real nice in the Maxxum tractor. Allows them to, once you've made your hitch settings, you leave them alone, and at the end of the row you use this switch to raise and lower the implement back into the ground. Makes it real convenient.
Looks nice. A couple other controls here. I see remote levers. Looks like you've got 2, and slots there for maybe 2 more. So they've got potential for 4 remotes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, what's that control there? Good big...
Okay, this is the PTO. Okay, it's electrically controlled, electric over hydraulic. So it modulates itself. You can't control the rate of modulation, but it is modulated. And the other neat thing is if you need to shut it off real quick, you just give it a hit and it goes back off.
Little feature there. Gets us to the transmission, and that's what I've been wondering about. And there are a lot of controls here. Can you kind of walk me through this?
Right, the transmission really has 4 different controls, and I'll go through those. This lever here is our range lever. There are 2 ranges. Okay, now these are synchronized ranges. I would clutch and shift to make the range changes. So you've got low and you've got high.
Okay.
Okay. The second lever here is a 2-speed part of the transmission. Okay, again, these are synchronized speeds. I would clutch and shift to make those speeds.
Okay, you got a clutch for either one of these. Is that right?
Yeah,
okay.
Both these levers are gear shift levers. On this lever here, though, is where the 4-speed power shift part comes in. And this is a pulse type power shift, which means I use this button here by the little rabbit here is where I use to pulse up. I would hit it once to jump up 1 power shift speed, hit it again, and so forth up through 4 speeds, the bottom button to go to downshift my power shift speeds.
Okay, and then the third lever over?
Okay, and this lever here is the shuttle. Okay, they've got a forward and reverse shuttle on this transmission.
Okay, do you have to clutch for that or not clutch for that?
This is synchronized, which means I have to clutch. Okay, when you compare that to our Maxxum that has a full power shuttle, there's a big difference.
Yeah, this is a little confusing to me because you've got a clutch to move this, right?
Right.
And you're changing ranges. You've got a clutch to move this lever, correct?
Right.
And you've got a clutch to move this lever.
Right.
So the only power shift that I see is the button control on the top of this handle.
Right, and that's your 4-speed power shift.
Looks like a lot of work to get from a low range to a high range. Could you kind of step through from a low to a high? Show me how that would work?
Sure. How that would work is if you started out in the first sequence of speeds, you would start out in low range, and this would be first gear. and then from there I can pulse up to first, second, third, or fourth.
All right.
Okay, now if I want to go to the next set of power shift speeds, I would then move this lever, I would clutch, move this lever into the second speed position, leaving this in low.
Okay, and then you pick up 5, 6, 7, and 8 in that range.
On the power shift,
okay.
right.
And then to move on up, back to that lever again?
Okay, this is where it gets a little more complicated in that I need to bring this lever back to 1 and this up into high range. So I'm now in high range first speed, which gives me now the third group of power shift speeds.
Okay.
And that it becomes very awkward making that shift, and it just so happens that that two lever type shift is right in the middle of where the working speeds are. It's in your second and third batch of power shift speeds.
Okay, a lot of motion there in terms of levers. You got to clutch quite often. Also looks like there's a little bit of effort there. How do you compare it to the Maxxum?
This particular transmission on this tractor shifts very hard. Particularly, standing still, it's not too bad, but when the tractor is running, it seems to be worse, and particularly downshifting. So when I make that shift here where I had to downshift this lever and then raise this one up, this one here really gets stiff. When I was operating the tractor, I was finding myself leaning in behind the levers to get my shoulder behind it so that I could shift it.
Yeah, I noticed that on a Maxxum, the controls would be angled right at your body. It'd be a little easier to pull those levers back and forth. Here you're actually pulling at an angle to your body.
That's right.
Okay, looks like now a lot of other areas. Have we finished on this kind of?
I'd like to mention one other thing on the shuttle area that I noticed, again, during operation when I was using the tractor, was that because I had to do the modulation with the clutch, when you change directions and you're trying to control that with your foot, you know, as you change directions, your body's wanting to pull away from the pedal. I had a hard time feathering. Where in the Maxxum, where it's shuttle, it does its own modulation. You know, your body movement has no function there.
Gotcha.
Where that really made that a little bit difficult to feather that from one direction to the other.
Okay.
I will note that the clutch on this tractor, when you have a power shift transmission, is a wet clutch. It's a multi-disc wet clutch, hydraulically operated.
Okay, well you were absolutely right when you said this is not the pulse command I'm familiar with on the big Ford tractor. This is certainly a different transmission. Looks like the controls are a little more confusing than on the big tractor.
Yeah, it's entirely different than the big pulse command, and the other thing is it's a lot different than our 4-speed and our Maxxum.
Okay. Rest of the cab looks nicely finished, well cleaned up, nice floor matting. A lot of the things like flat deck that we've got in the Maxxum that look pretty good. Any other features that strike you as new or really nice?
Just you mentioned the floor mat, even the fact that they've raised the floor mat up so that it makes it easy to clean, so that water will wash away real easy. They've got a high lip, and it's something that we've done on Maxxum and has been a good idea, a good feature.
How about the seat controls?
The seat controls are very well labeled, I noticed, so it makes it easy to operate, and I kind of like the fact that the seat does tilt.
Okay, to swivel over
does
to
swivel.
the side.
That is convenient for watching your implements out the back. That is nice.
Okay, ready to look at our smaller tractor, the two-wheel drive?
Yeah.
Okay, let's take a walk over.
Okay. You know, George, unlike this cab tractor, this 6640 here is only accessible from the one side.
Okay, let's take the side panel off. That an option also?
Yes, this is an option because it's an SL package. If it was the SLE package, this would be a standard feature.
Okay, engine changes, anything different in there?
Really, all the changes that we talked about on the 6-cylinder engine earlier apply to this 4-cylinder engine.
Okay. Why don't we button that back up, Mark? Tell me, what does this compare to in terms of Maxxum size? What model are we comparing to?
Okay, the 6640 compares with our 5120 Maxxum.
Okay. And this is a two-wheel drive. Let's talk a little about front axle. Something different there?
Okay, we talked about Ford increasing the strength of their block. They've also increased the front end strength of the axle itself. They used to use what they call their inverted U. It was not a very strong axle. Now that they've gone to the box beam design, it's much stronger. But take a look at this, George. Look that I can put my hands around
it. Yeah. Maxxum axle is much bigger than that, isn't it?
That's right. You tried to do that on a Maxxum once.
What's the size difference?
This is a 4-inch box beam. On the Maxxum, it's a 6-inch box beam.
You have to wonder, do they have the capacity to carry big tanks, put a hitch on the front, that sort of thing? How about a loader? Can you mount a loader on this tractor?
Yes, you can.
Okay, but you kind of wonder about the structural aspect of it.
Yes.
Okay, what's different up front? What else is different?
The other thing I wanted to point out, and again, this is tied to the package because it's an SL, this particular model has an external muffler.
Okay, the big tractor we looked at has an external exhaust, but muffler under hood. Here we got muffler and stack above the hood. Does that make a difference as far as noise is concerned?
It's going to be a little bit louder. Now,
Okay.
if a guy wanted to buy the SLE package of this model, he would then get an underhood muffler.
Okay, again, packaging to get some more of the features, and you're probably talking a little cost add there.
Yes.
Okay, where to now?
Let's go to the back of the tractor.
Thank you.
Now, George, when we go back here, I want you to tell me what you see that's different from what we looked at before.
Well, what I don't see are the big lift cylinders that were on the other tractor.
Right. This tractor, the way it's equipped, would have the lesser of the hitch capacity, would have 4,200 pounds. Now, if the customer wanted, he could buy the option of another lift cylinder to increase his hitch capacity.
Okay, so again, you got an option on up to get the bigger capacity of each package that we talked about earlier.
That's correct.
Okay, what else is different here in the hitch or the hydraulics? Hydraulics, I assume, is the same. Is that right?
No, because this is an SL package now, it does not have PFC hydraulics. The hydraulics will be driven by a gear-type pump, an open center system.
So you go down, as you go down in model size, you go down in some of the features in terms of hydraulic system. Maxxum, we've got PFC all the way.
Right.
Hitch lift sensing, is that different here?
Okay, yes, you can see this is top link sensing. This is pretty much the system that Ford has used for many years. That's what's standard on most of the tractors. If you remember, we said on the 8240 that that system on there was an option on all the other tractors.
Okay.
So this is what will be standard on all the tractors except the 8240 and above.
Okay, PTO, same thing or different?
This PTO on this tractor is a 540, PTO only. It would be another option again if you wanted a 540 and 1,000 RPM PTO.
Okay, why don't we quickly go through the controls on this tractor?
Okay, let's do that.
Show me what's new up here, Mark.
Okay, before we climb up onto the platform, I want to tell you a bit about the platform on this tractor. On the 4-cylinder models, they'll have what they call a raised deck. Okay, you can see it's somewhat of a straddle mount. It's a very shallow straddle, but it is a straddle type mount. And this deck here is not iso-mounted. The platform is bolted solid metal to metal up to the frame.
Okay, so you've got no suspension except for the seat on this tractor. It must be a little rougher ride.
That's right. And you'll get a little bit of vibration probably in your feet, just a little bit on this platform.
Okay.
Now on the 6-cylinder models though, you'll have a flat deck, more like what we have on Maxxum, that is rubber iso-mounted.
Okay.
Okay. So now let's go on up and look at the controls. You'll notice right off the bat, George, that the console area is quite a bit different than what we saw in the cab environment.
Less complex, fewer controls,
Yep. But mainly what I want to talk about here is this transmission. This is their 12-speed transmission. That's really the biggest difference on this SL package. What we have in this transmission are 3 gear shift levers. This is your range lever out here, and it has 3 ranges, low, medium, and high.
Okay.
Then you have your 4 speeds, and then right here I have the forward and reverse shuttle. This is the synchronized shuttle, very much like the shuttle used on the power shift version.
Okay, now is this a fully synchronized transmission?
Almost. All the gears are synchronized with the exception of low. Low range is not synchronized. You're not going to notice that as you shift up in speed, but when you come back down into low, you'll have to completely stop the tractor before you can shift that into low.
Okay. I've noticed something else, Mark. That shuttle shift lever is right next to the other 2 control levers, just like it was on the bigger tractor. On the Maxxum, we've got the shuttle lever up here, so you can use your left hand to control it and freeing your right hand to do more activity. Does this give you any more problems when you're doing some operations, having that shuttle over there?
Certainly, especially in an application like loader work, where you're going to want to operate some hydraulic controls with your right hand, plus you're going to want to shuttle, and if you want to change speeds to boot, it's going to become rather cumbersome and slow you down.
Okay, anything else different on this transmission?
The other big difference with this transmission is that we use a dry clutch on this tractor. We lose that multi-disc wet clutch that we had on the power shift, and you go to a traditional dry single disc type clutch.
Okay, now Maxxum's clutch is wet, whether we're talking power shift or mechanical transmission,
That's right. And we do that mainly because even on the synchronized transmission, you're actually clutching more than you are in a power shift, so we don't want to take that feature away.
Okay. Anything else we want to chat about?
That's about it.
Okay, let's go down and recap both these tractors.
Okay.
Okay, let's talk a little about the engines. A lot of changes, but still basically an older engine design, is that right?
That's right. And when you take new technology and put in an older design, you know there has to be some compromises in that engine.
Okay, certainly not designed the same way. It's an older tractor, so the engine is still a structural member of the tractor, unlike the Maxxum where the engine is purely a power plant. Is that correct?
That's right. So now the engine is now taking a lot of stress from the front end of the tractor because it's a structural member, and that does have an effect on the engine life long down the road.
You got to wonder too, with their increased hitch lift capacity and the extra load that they're expecting the tractor to handle, what that'll do to the engine too.
Certainly.
Nice new cab, a lot of visibility, easy to see things, some new features. How is it operationally though? Is it a nice cab to work in?
When I operated it, the thing I noticed most was you hear some gear whine inside that cab, mainly because they use spur cut gears, and they will have a tendency to be noisier, and you hear it up through the gear shift levers, travels up into the cab.
Okay, so internally then this transmission is an older design than the Maxxum transmission.
Yes.
Apparently so. Transmissions themselves, they've got a 12-speed mechanical and a 16-speed power shift, right?
That's right, George. The thing I want you to keep in mind, though, is when you look at the 12-speed transmission, for instance, and both transmissions, for that matter, have a lot of overlap from one range to the other. And in doing that, they've got several gear speeds that give you effectively the same travel speed. So if you look at the 12-speed, for example, out of the 12 speeds, there are 4 speeds that are identical in one range as they are in another range, which means really you only have 8 speeds left that are effectively different speeds.
I didn't realize that. What about the power shift? Is that the same way?
Not as bad. There's still a lot of overlap, but there are 3 speeds there that are very close to being the same, which leaves you really with 13 effective travel speeds different.
Okay. Big thing I noticed too is the shuttle. Just being down there with the other controls, it's not as handy as it is on the Maxxum. Operationally, how do you compare this power shift to our power shift on a Maxxum?
A person really has to operate both tractors to get a real good feel for the differences. You know, we've explained some differences, but when you operate it, you really can tell the difference, particularly when you start using the power shift speeds and you're using the pulse in this case, where you have to go through each speed, and then you get on our tractor and you can just jump from first to fourth because it's an inline type shift. You can skip shift. It just becomes much easier to operate. When you look at the way you have to use the 2 different levers to make the gear changes within the power shift transmission. On ours, our simple H pattern makes it so much easier, and the lever efforts, and you need to experience that.
Okay, a nice tractor, lots of changes, but still not a Maxxum. Thanks, Mark.
You're very welcome, George.